So over the past, say, 10 years or so, there's been numerous reports about how the middle class is shrinking, how it's disappearing and getting smaller and smaller each year. And HUD pretty much just confirmed that by releasing their new 2025 income limits. Now, their income limits are what determines eligibility for HUD-assisted programs. In order to qualify and receive benefits from programs, you have to make under a certain amount of money. And these income limits vary by location, as they're expressed as a percentage of the area median income, known as the AMI. So the income limits of somewhere expensive to live, say like California, will be much different than the income limits of somewhere, say like Arkansas, but the percentages are the same. Now, there are 3 different levels of low income. You have extremely low income, very low income, and just plain old low income. In order to be considered extremely low income, you'd have to make 30% or less of the median income of the area you live in. To be considered very low income, you'd have to make 50% or less. And to be low income, you'd have to make 80% or less. So for instance, if the area median income of where you live is, say, $60,000, well, if you made 30% of that or lower, which is up to $18,000, then you'd be considered extremely low income. If you made up to $30,000, then you're very low income. And up to $48,000, you're considered low income. Now, according to the income limits that HUD just released, it's quite alarming because it's obvious to see that the middle class is doomed. And here's exactly why. Across almost 2,500 areas that HUD publishes income limits for, 27% of the area had an income limit increase of a total of 9.2%. So that pretty much means last year you could have made 9% higher than the income limits to be considered low income. So you would have been considered a middle income earner. But this year, with the low income limits rising as high as 9.2%, you just dropped from the lower middle class to now being a low income earner. And this is crazy because HUD was forecasting that increases would be closer to 3%, which is more in line with inflation. But 9.2%, that's more than 3 times the inflation rate. And 41% of the areas had an increase of more than 8%. So more and more middle income earners are dropping to low income earners. They could have literally got a 3 to 4% raise in their salary, which is average, and still could have possibly dropped from the middle class. And these numbers support the many reports that have been saying that the American middle class is disappearing. How is it just disintegrating right in front of our eyes? Well, one of the reasons is the cost of living is rising. And even though wages has been rising faster than inflation in recent years, the cost of essentials like housing, food, and utilities remain high. And unlike lower income households who may qualify for help from the government, like with rental assistance, food stamps, utility credits, cash assistance, a lot of the middle class don't qualify for such assistance, putting the burden of paying for these essentials solely on them. It's shocking to know that over half of Americans making 6 figures or more are living paycheck to paycheck and can't even afford to pay a $1,000 emergency, which is crazy. Another reason why middle income earners are dropping to low income earners is most of them are not investing. Investing is the only way to have your money work for you, whether it be the stock market, real estate, or a business. It's the only way to truly build wealth. It even got to the point where the government wanted to incentivize the middle class to save and invest by introducing the Middle Class Savings and Investment Act. This was a few years ago, and the act would have provided tax incentives for middle class taxpayers, with no tax being imposed on investment income up to a certain amount. But the sad truth is that after expenses, a lot of them don't have any money left to invest. It's a common saying that you shouldn't invest what you can't afford to lose. And if most of the middle class is living paycheck to paycheck with no savings, then they really can't afford to lose anything. Compared to high income earners, they have more disposable income to invest with, which is why the top 10% of income earners own about 93% of all household stock market wealth. The rich continues to get richer while the middle class continues to miss out. Now, another reason the middle class has been shrinking over the years is because of technology. The advancement of technology has definitely been a good thing and very beneficial across a number of industries around the world. But the effects of it has shifted many middle class jobs and replaced them with automation. For example, manufacturing in the United States was extremely strong at one point, particularly in the late 70s. You could have earned a good middle class living working at a manufacturing plant. But technology has almost wiped this industry completely out. Companies say to themselves, why pay a bunch of workers a middle class salary and they're entitled to health benefits, sick leave, vacation, when I can have a computer do everything they can do and then some. And then it's much more efficient, it never gets tired, never call out sick, doesn't need benefits, and it's much cheaper. Companies only care about their bottom line. And at some point in time, it just didn't make too much sense to have humans in some of these jobs. And we're actually seeing this in a number of industries, just like retail. The number of cashiers is shrinking because of self-checkout machines. And I literally was at a restaurant the other day with my wife, and it had machines bringing people their food. And even though it's really cool to see, however, a lot of these human jobs are being replaced, and it's bound to have a major impact on society. Another reason a lot of middle-class jobs have been disappearing is because of competition from overseas. A lot of times, what's being done over here in the United States can be done much cheaper in other countries. Manufacturing is much stronger overseas, where they're willing to do the work or can produce the products for a fraction of the cost that it would take here in America. As a result, many people in the middle class have lost their jobs or have seen their wages decrease. And it's kind of what Trump was talking about with all of these tariffs. He wants American companies to order goods from American companies. And hopefully, if the cost to have products shipped from China is just as expensive than ordering them from America, then it will incentivize companies to shop American. And as we're talking about jobs being lost to technology and overseas competitors, a lot of this is able to happen because of the decline of unions. Unions in America were once a powerful force in securing job wages and benefits for workers. But through the years, there's been a significant decline in unions and membership. This has definitely weakened the bargaining power of the middle class. I worked at the United States Postal Service as a letter carrier for many years. And even though I hated the job, one thing I can say is that it has a strong union. I was actually a union representative for my station. It's unfortunate that there's been reports of Trump trying to end collective bargaining for federal employees. If that were ever to happen, it will definitely go from bad to worse. Now, the middle class is also getting punished the most when it comes to taxes. Even though, technically, high-income earners pay the most in taxes, however, a lot more of them are usually the ones that take advantage of tax benefits. A Brookings study found that households worth $10 million or more benefits the most from the tax code, being able to make their income disappear. And it's also a big difference with how taxes are paid if you're a business or self-employed versus being a W-2 employee. When businesses and self-employed individuals receive income, they pay business expenses first and then pay taxes on what's left over. But when a W-2 employee gets paid, they pay taxes first and then get what's left over. So a higher percentage of the income is being paid to taxes. So if a business and a W-2 employee both get $1,000, the employee will pay taxes before they even get their paycheck. So $150 is already taken out and they have $850 left to spend. But the business or self-employed individual will first deduct their business expenses. Let's say that's $500. So now they'll pay taxes on the $500 that's left, which will be around $75. They both got paid the same amount. One paid $150, the other paid $75. Taxes are just more favorable to businesses and self-employed individuals, and most of the middle class are W-2 employees. Now, something else that's just been crushing the middle class is debt. Many middle-class Americans have taken on significant amounts of debt, as the debt amount for consumers in America is rising year by year. Whether it be student loan debt, credit card debt, personal loan debt, it's led to a financial burden that hinders wealth accumulation because it makes it harder to save or invest in assets. Now, with me being in the middle class, I must admit, some of the reasons why middle-class Americans are suffering is our own fault. A lot of middle-class Americans want to look and feel rich, overly spending on expensive liabilities just to look the part. Social media apps like Instagram encourages people to present a lifestyle that's flashy and extravagant, spending thousands of dollars on an outfit just to take a picture in it, post it, and never wear it again. Running up credit card bills on expensive vacations just for photos at popular landmarks. Yes, the middle class is doomed as we continue to fall into the low-income earners group, or for some people, climb up into the high-income earners group. But the results are that the middle class is shrinking. And who knows, one day it might get so bad to where it's at the point where you're either rich or poor. I don't know about y'all, but I'm trying to do exactly what 50 Cent said. Get rich or die trying. Thank you guys for watching.